Nothing can change a life faster than cancer. It impacts each and every one of us in some way. Whether you are a mom or a dad, grandma or grandpa, sister or brother, son or daughter, friend or neighbor, or even coworker, cancer is all of our fight.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, why you're here, and why you're part of this conversation.
All right, I am Sally Osler, and I am 3 years out survivor, breast cancer. And gosh, if I can say something that helps someone smile, then I will. And then every morning I wake up, this will date me, singing Staying Alive. And at night I do Madonna. Guess I'll die another day. And I'm just like, and that's me.
Awesome. Welcome, Sally.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Amy Beasley. I'm here because you asked me to be. No, I have breast cancer. I'm 3 weeks post-surgery, so I will probably start chemo next week. And my song's from Poppy, Princess Poppy. You can knock me over, but I'll get back up again.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
So I'm Ginger Johnson, and I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 31 years old and 5 months pregnant. Went through the whole chemotherapy experience and was clean for 9 years, and I got re-diagnosed on my 40th birthday in 2015 with stage 4 metastatic disease in my lungs, my bones, and my lymph nodes. But just last month, July of 2017, I got a no evidence of disease scan, so I have a clean bill of health.
Awesome.
It's second time around. Thank you. Yeah, so second time around, I opted not to do chemotherapy. I chose vitamin C, high-dose vitamin C and radiation combinations. So that's me.
Well, congratulations, and thank you for being here.
My name's Lydia Leputka, and I was diagnosed in February of 2016 with, let me see if I can remember, infiltrating ductal carcinoma, and it was stage 1, grade 3, and so I had to go through chemo, radiation, and a year of Herceptin infusions. And it's funny you should mention Song Sally, because that was what I did every week with my chemo. I brought a song for the nurses and did a lot of that. So the one came to mind just now was Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Love it.
And my name is Toni Locke. I just finished chemo on July 12th, meeting the radiologist this Thursday to do my radiation plan. I had clean nodes and clean margins, did a bilateral lumpectomy, and to me, I feel that my cancer is gone. This is all preventative, so. Yeah. And that's where I'm at. I was in the middle of a Qigong and cancer study teaching at the Huntsman when I had surgery, so it was pretty ironic.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here. Welcome. I'm so excited that you guys have all joined us today, and I know that Steve is as well. So we're just going to get started. First question that I have is, each of us here have experienced cancer in its own unique way. So from diagnosis to treatment options, it can really take a mental toll on all of you and all of us, right? How did each of you cope with the diagnosis?
All right, so like I said, I didn't really feel like I had cancer, and so, as probably for all of us, kind of a big shock, surprise. And I had gone to a doctor before I went on a humanitarian service project, came back, and she had said there's a little rise, and this wasn't it was my internal medicine doctor. She said, make sure you get your mammogram. And I do every year. And so when I got back, I went and got it, and it came back clean. And I went to my OB. So I had met with 3 different doctors thinking things are great. And probably 4 months out from my mammogram, I personally found the lump. So very important to check yourself, because mammograms didn't work for me. And that's for a lot of ladies. So when they told me, it was so shocking. I still don't believe I had it. I know that's weird. But in my mind, I'm not going to have it. I'm going to have to. And then they do the biopsy, the first one. They're like, you're clear. You'll just need radiation. I'm like, that's cool. Then when they did my lumpectomy, they come back, no, actually, you're going to need chemo. And so you think you're this big, strong person. I'm like, bring it. Let's just get it done. And then after my first 1 or 2 chemo, I was like, oh, this is gnarly. So Tony's very angry and bugged, but that's what I was told by many that had it just get really angry, not at, the Lord, not at the world, just get angry about cancer. And so you become a fighter. Yeah. And I am kind of a fighter. So that's it.
Amy, how did you, you're right now going through this.
I kind of the same, like I still don't really, because I don't feel sick. I feel okay, like my boobs hurt a little bit, but I don't feel like sick. And I remember in the waiting room when they hadn't really even told me yet that it was like absolute positive, but the radiologist was like, yeah, it looks like very suspicious. And I remember going back to the waiting room and it was like, I don't really know what the statistics are, but I was like, I had read it and I was like, oh, well, there's 3 of us here, 1 out of 3. Well, I got this, girls, like you guys are fine. I'll take this one. And I haven't really, I don't know, it's kind of surreal. Like it doesn't really it just doesn't seem like it's really happening. But every day it's going to happen whether I want it to or not. My little girl, she was like, well, why are you not mad or why are you not angry? And I just thought, well, I can be mad or angry, but it's still going to be there. So
Doesn't fix
it.
it's just going to,
Doesn't fix it.
Right.
So that's my thing.
Well, and Ginger, obviously, right, 31, pregnant, 5 months in, and you find out, and then you have history later, 40th birthday.
Yeah. Well, the first time it was interesting because I was a fitness instructor prior to getting diagnosed. So again, it wasn't on my radar. And being pregnant was quite, everything was fear. I think that's the first thing that everyone feels when you hear the words, whether, you have the tears later or whether you have the tears that day or whenever that comes. It's just that fear and, being pregnant and wondering, will I live? Will my child live? And what will come of that situation, because we all go into it not knowing. It's the unknown that just scares you. It just scares you because you've never been in that space. And so, yeah, it was very challenging, very scary experience. I actually had my first mastectomy at 6 months pregnant because I wouldn't abort, and it was my choice not to do chemotherapy. And oftentimes we just make sanity calls. We're doing the best we can with what we have, right. And we just make sanity calls on what we feel is going to be right. So I did, that first year of chemotherapy, and it was challenging, but my service, my song was actually to provide presents and prizes for people in chemotherapy and wish them a happy chemo. And that's kind of how I got through, my treatment. Being clean for 9 years and then having the re-diagnosis, especially on my 40th birthday, because the first time I was diagnosed was actually Halloween Day. So like holidays, what's up with that? I don't know, but I got, re-diagnosed on my 40th birthday, and it was really surreal. That's the word I think that came, is it was really surreal. But at the same time, I had learned so much over that span of time, and I just thought, you know what? I'm gonna live. Like, I just made the choice. Like, I'm going to live. Now, there's a lot of factors and variables that played into that, but I started out with the mindset that I would live, and that I wasn't going to listen to all the negativity that you hear across the world and across the internet of death. And, I didn't even ask them to give me a timeline, because that wasn't even on my radar. I was going to live. And so there's a lot to be said for this time around. I went away from fear, and I really went into faith and love. Mm-hmm. And how can I love myself more, and how can I, give that hope to myself, but also to other people. And that's kind of where I am today.
So it's good your coping mechanism was helping others.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Lydia.
Surreal. You are both right. Mine was actually caught in an annual mammogram. So, like you, feeling great, no problem. They called me back, and I'm like, because they'd called me back a year prior to that. So I said I seriously was like, what breast are we talking? And she's like, no, last year was your right breast. This year it's your left breast. And I was like, well, it's going to be nothing. So I went in totally cavalier, and when I had the appointment, and they said we were doing the mammogram, extra one, what are they called, diagnostic. And he said, we need to do a biopsy. And I seriously was like, no, like joking. And he's like, well, what's wrong? I said, I am a school teacher. Do you know how much time it took me to prepare to be here today? My husband's in the waiting room. We're supposed to go out to a movie, you know? And so he said, maybe we can get you in. And he's like, what grade do you teach? First grade. I'm like, oh, I have a first grader. And I think I got that biopsy that day because he wanted to pick my brain about his first grader. So it was kind of this weird thing. And so then I'm in a meeting after school, and I had called my husband to the hospital call, and he's like, well, they did, but they wouldn't talk to me. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went into the meeting, had my phone off, and the phone call came up on silent, and it's buzzing, and I'm looking at it going, oh, I need to take it. So I go in the hallway. So I'm in the hallway at my elementary school, and the lady says to me, let me get the doctor. First, she makes sure it's me, checks my birth date and all that stuff, and let me get the doctor. It's like, well, thanks for just telling me I have cancer. I was a little ticked. So I'm standing there 5 minutes waiting, and the doctor comes on and says that, and I'm just sitting there, you're just numb. And there's a teacher coming down the hallway, and here's the doctor, do you have any questions? And I'm like, am I a candidate for a lumpectomy? I don't, nobody knows I'm in there for the biopsy, just a select few. And I'm just like, it was so weird. I'm in this hallway. And then they get the nurse on, and they're like, okay, well, you need to pick a hospital, you need to pick a surgeon. And it's like, it was, so, and I'm like, can I just please get off the phone and talk to my husband? It was crazy. And so I was able to talk to my husband and all that stuff. But it's just a whirlwind, and you go through the gamut of emotions, and finally when you get to where you're getting your treatment and stuff, I was superwoman. I went through chemo, I was training for a half marathon. I'm not gonna let this, I already paid my money for that half marathon, I'm gonna run this half marathon. So I kept training and was teaching. I was getting chemo every Thursday, and then it went into my summer. Then I had a couple weeks off, started radiation, kept training, ran my half marathon, and I'm superwoman, I'm great. Started this new school year off, and I just lost it emotionally. So I was really strong, and then when it got to facing a whole new classroom of children and all their families that I really didn't know, and they didn't know my journey, they didn't know it was a struggle. And I refer to myself as being obnoxiously peppy, and I had to be put on antidepressants. So I was put on the antidepressants. My oncologist wanted me on them for 6 months. I went on all the way through June. I'm actually stepping down as a full-time teacher and going to part-time kindergarten to breathe for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the emotional toll is real. It's difficult, and maybe there are other people that don't have that, but for me it was super hard because I'm energetic. I'm the energetic bunny, energizer bunny, but it laid me out flat. So, and I had to go in and be smiley and happy every day for my first graders, and
which is hard. And as we all have experienced, it does come in waves where it's like, okay, I'm going, and then you just crash, and then something lifts you up. But so Tony, tell me about your.
I found my own lump the day after Christmas, and my very best friend and soul sister, who is a family nurse practitioner, is in stage 4. So I called her, and she said, don't worry about it, just go get your mammogram. And so I did. She's like, don't tell them you found it, just let them do their work. So I did. Make a long story short, I stayed. I got in on the 28th, which anybody who has a lump, you might want to wait till the first of the year, because I screwed up my insurance by 48 hours. And stayed because I wanted to know. But what got me through it is family and support, and my teacher of 20 years. And he's just like, it is what it is. And my teacher is a survivor of prostate cancer. And that's been my mantra lately. It is what it is. And I got clean notes and clean margins. And when I had the pathology report, it was over President's Day, and they were really busy, so it was 10 days. It was 10 of the longest days to find out. And but I kept my mantras like clean notes, clean margins. I was on my cushion every day and writing gratitude. And anyway, it came out that way, and I told myself I wasn't going to do chemo because I was with my friend every stage of the way with her, and it was horrible. So I said to the universe, because I have a daughter who's going to be 13 next month, I said, the only way I will do it is if they can tell me 90% chance it won't come back. Otherwise, if it's 30, screw it. And I went in there, and the first thing she said after she saw my HER2 positive, because I'm doing Herceptin 2, is 90% chance this won't come back if you do chemo and radiation. And I just went, shit. And she's like, what? And I said, well, I told myself those were the words I needed to hear. And that's what I heard. And it was crazy. And then, like I said, I was in the middle. I teach at Huntsman Cancer Institute, which is very ironic. I teach Tai Chi and Qigong, and I was in the middle of a Qigong study and knew I was going to have treatment. And mine was like, my tumors were really small, and my boobs are really small. I'm like, can I save my boobs? I don't want to do a mastectomy because it's longer recovery time, and I'm in the middle of a study. So I was in and out in 10 days. My oncologist made sure that my treatments are on Wednesday, and she's just been so great. She's like, you're going to teach the whole time, and I haven't taken one nauseous pill, but chemo fatigue is real. And when you were saying, like, you know, the emotional waves, my analogy is like a puppy. I have all this energy sometimes, then pretty soon I'm just like, I'm done.
Yeah, absolutely.
My energy's out.
I think we all do what we have to do, right? And there's no one emotion that's attached to it because it's almost everything. So thank you for all sharing that. I think for all of us, we have one person in our life that we can call, right? Like the best friend that you can call and say, hey, I just need to talk through something. Who was that person for you during cancer, during treatment, or who is that person currently that you can call on that made a difference? And what did they do to help you through this process?
Okay, mine's so weird. I guess we're all
We're sorry. I don't think there's anything.
It's not like we're
weird.
so
It's
unique, but of course my mom came, and my husband, and my kids. They would drop in, and I didn't always want them when I was chemoing. I was like, nah, you got things to do. Waste of time for them, but I knew their love. But my sister, who is 8 years older, did breast cancer a week ahead of me. And I didn't know that till I called her to let her know I was doing. And she's like, Russell, her husband, Russell, Sally has breast cancer. And I'm like, okay. And she's in California. I'm like, that is the oddest response. And she's like, I have it too. And she had already gone and got her surgery, and I was a week from going in to get mine. And I'm like, well, first I wanted to kill her for not telling us, but she thought she could do that by herself in California. So what was so nice is and I was telling her, text me. And we would text. She was a week ahead in chemo. So when she was going through her train wreck, I was feeling good. And so when she was coming out of it, I had chemoed. And so those first 10 days when I'm thinking, I'm not gonna make it. So we would text each other and we daily text. And some days it was like, I don't feel like talking today. Yeah. So that was so nice. I think I'm so sad she had to go through it. I'm so grateful. I'm not grateful I had to go through it, but I was grateful we got to do it together. Yeah, that we had that support. So that's who for me.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm afraid to name anybody because I don't want anybody to feel bad. But I mean, my parents when I found my lump, I told my parents right away, and my dad has gone to every appointment with me, has carted my butt around to every doctor's appointment. And my friends, I have a lot of amazing friends, but my two friends have been amazing. My friend Heather, she gave me my first shower and washed my hair, and Natalie gave me my second shower. And it's so weird to have your friends shower you, but whatever, they're just boobs. They're gone now, so who cares? But I think my my parents and my friends, have just
so
been
many.
And everybody has just. I don't know how it will be later on when I start chemo. I feel like I don't want people to be there with me because I don't want them to waste 3 hours of their life just sitting there watching me, get chemo. Drugs. But I feel bad too, telling them not to. But I don't know. I guess I've got a long ways to figure.
I can say this. I came to the hospital when you had surgery, and I met your parents in the elevator coming up to your room, and we had no idea. We didn't know each other, and I had a rose for Amy, and so that started the conversation. And your dad and your mom were both so incredible, and they were incredible in the room, and I got to meet your friends. So you know that they do have your back, and they support you because they wouldn't let you go through it alone.
My friend Heather, she does Pampered Chef, and she just started a Pampered Chef party for like a fundraiser for me.
That's very
I'm like,
nice.
that's amazing that you would even do that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's what friends are for.
Yeah.
Ginger.
Well, mine's a little bit interesting because I was pregnant. So granted, when I found out, I called my mom and dad. So my mom was amazing during that time, and my siblings were amazing during that time. I kind of had a husband that was checked out a lot of times. So during the pregnancy and, because I took my son full term, and then I had 3 additional surgeries and started chemo when he was about 6 to 8 weeks old. It's kind of a blur. In fact, I couldn't remember his birthday for 5 years. So then I had mommy guilt because, you're not able to retain that information because there's so much going on. Yeah, so my mom was always there for me. She would come and take care of the baby, and then I had amazing neighbors that would watch my kids during treatments. And when I got re-diagnosed, that was a different story because now my little baby was 8, and my other 2 children were in their teens. And the second time around was a different story. I wasn't gonna cry. Second time around, second time around was a different story. And I found out a lot of some unsavory things about my husband at that time. In fact, so much so when you talk about waves and you talk about not feeling sure, like my integrity was so challenged that I actually spent a week in the behavioral unit. And because I had a breakdown, because my reality just shattered. Yeah. It shattered. And so that led to divorce and, going through treatments while you're doing child custody evaluations and battles, and you have to step away from everything that that you've created and businesses. And I mean, it was huge. I mean, it was the snot cry in the corner. We all know the snot cry in the corner, like trying to figure out ourselves and what we're going to do. So this time around, I really made the intention to start receiving more because I was always a giver. And I started to receiving more. So I've had people rally around me now where I have some really good friends, and my family has stepped in, and it's been amazing. But I made the choice to allow myself really to be okay not being okay. Mm-hmm. Just being okay not being okay, and being okay accepting that every day is going to be different, and some people are going to walk away. Some people will not be able to handle it. Some people will rally around you, and then your hair goes back, and then they go away, because they think you still don't need help when the emotional stress and the emotional strain is so huge. But, I've learned to allow people to be, because I can't control them.
So it sounds like you chose to almost support yourself.
I supported myself.
The second time around,
Yep.
You chose you.
I was the supporter
Yes,
for me.
And
Yeah.
and that's okay. You had great friends around you, but you chose to allow yourself to nurture.
Yeah, more self-care.
Own.
Tons more
absolutely.
self-care this time around. Yeah.
Great. Lydia.
The interesting thing about this disease is that you can be surrounded by the most amazing, well-intentioned people on the planet, and you can still feel very alone. Yeah. And that was a lot for me. It wasn't fair to my husband because I hid a lot of it, crying in the shower and that kind of stuff.
I've done it in the closet.
Yep, exactly. He was amazing, of course, but there were things I didn't tell him. One thing you also realize that there are certain people you can be real with and others that you can't. So how are you doing? I'm doing great. And other ones that, you just look at them and you start crying, and then you tell them everything, and you tell right from, the horrible, the bloody nose that put me into the emergency room to the, gastrointestinal issues. And so you just have to pick and choose. And the same thing with who you reveal it to and how you reveal it. And it's this really interesting process. But there was a gal at my mom was amazing too. She flew out for my second and third chemos, but I love that you use it as a verb when I chemoed, but that was cracked me up. But there's a gal at my church that had gone through a single mastectomy and chemo, and she and her husband were instrumental to my husband and me in terms of advice and things to do, and I was so grateful for that. And she would write me notes. I'd probably get a note from her every couple of weeks, and that just was so tender to me. And I have 2 other friends in California that I called as well that had been through it. And it's just so individualized. It's unbelievable. I mean, just our stories here, but every single person you talk to, it's completely individualized.
Absolutely.
And as unique as each of us is. And
Yes.
it's really interesting. So, anyhow.
Well, I have so many, it's hard to. You know, my husband, of course, and my daughter, and my teacher of 20 years, because he's been through it, and then, of course, the lady I was telling you about. But also my community of where I teach, because they have been giving me so much that they say I give to them, that it, you know, the group energy.
It's reciprocal.
It's Tai Chi and Qigong brings me back to my center, where I feel like, you know, trying to be strong and stuff all the time. Like even the simple thing of, before I lost my hair, because I knew, you know, you're told you're going to lose your hair, and you're like, okay, I got this. And then you start to lose your hair. And my husband, in a nice, gentle way, said, honey, you knew this was going to happen. And my thought was, yeah, but it's different when you experience it. So knowing and experiencing are 2 different things.
Yes, I agree.
And, but as far as, if I can say, having people come to your chemo, when you say no to somebody who really wants to help, you block their giving. And I've had friends who have totally told me, thank you so much for taking me up on this. And the time flies, and if it's those real friends, you want to have them there. There are some people, like I didn't want my husband to come to chemo. It was like he wanted to, but he didn't. Kind of, you know, we were both. And it was rough the first time, but the second time it was okay, because there's some people that are really nurturing and can be there for you, and some people, better to have them pick you up and take you and stuff like that. But if there are people in your life that want to do things, I had a dear sweet friend who gave me a little gift on my porch. I had 12 chemo treatments every night before, and wrote me a note, and they were different notes. And then people who really wanted to take me to chemo, and other people were from afar. And it's okay to love people from afar. I can't handle everybody in my space.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to relationships. So some of us are married, some of us are divorced. I'm getting married in 3 weeks. No. He's a keeper, so he's worth it. But I want to talk about how having cancer, breast cancer, strengthened or hindered your relationship with your significant other, your spouse, or maybe your best friend, like whoever you want to talk about that with. But how did that play a role in your relationship?
Interesting question. Gosh, I'm kind of on the fence with that. We have a strong relationship. We still did, but I sure my husband wanted to sit and cuddle me. But after so many surgeries and you're burnt, and you know, it's like, you know, kind of keep a distance. Not because I didn't want him to love me.
Right, because of the way you were feeling.
Yeah, I felt like crap. Right? I was like, yeah, and honestly, after you've gone through a surgery or 2, and you don't feel real great. And so I'm sure it strengthened us, and I know that's what everyone's like, oh, it'll make your relationship so much better, and I didn't make it worse. He was there for me anytime I wanted. I think I'm the one that was kind of like, all right, now I'm just trying to process it and try to hold my stuff together, go to work and come home and be strong. And so, I mean, thank goodness. I mean, he was so supportive.
Right.
My whole family was so
great.
supportive. They would have been there in a minute. But sometimes I wanted that minute to myself.
And you also, but I was just say you also knew when you needed that that time, because I think we all need that.
And he was really good.
Time.
If it was like, don't bug me, then he would not bug me.
Yes.
So that I you know, yes, there you go.
That's great. I know your story is completely different.
Oh, yes, it is. Well, so we were already working on getting divorced, and he was such a jerk to me the day before I told him. And I just didn't feel like he had the right to know. And I don't know, he like was really prying and trying to get it out of me. And then the next day I was just like, you know what, I'm not your concern anymore. You don't need to worry about it. And then the next day I finally told him, and all of a sudden he was super nice. I'm so sorry you have to go through this, and blah, blah. And it just wasn't, there's genuine kindness, and I just didn't feel like that was genuine. And even through this whole thing, like some days I know it's been hard for him. Like last Friday was our last mediation. So this is like really brand new divorce, but like he just has not, like he wants to be there and he wants a role in this cancer thing that's going on, but I just don't want help from him. I have so many other people that are there that I would rather have help me, and I just feel like it's not a genuine offer, and I don't want it thrown back in my face. And it's been hard because it's just me and my girls, which I'm fine with. But it's also hard because there are those times where you're just sitting there and you don't have anyone to talk to, and you don't have anyone to share these things with. And I certainly don't want to call him and be like, hey, I just don't want anything between us anymore. Right. Because I think he'll take it the wrong way, and I don't want to go down that path again. So it's been hard, and my girls are young, and they don't want to hear my sad story, and like I cry in the shower because I don't want to cry in front of them. And
so I think it's great that he is there with the kids. He can
Yes.
take the kids, and you have your time to yourself, and you also get to create relationships like we get to create now that we all know each other, so we can call on each other and say, this just happened. Like, I'm literally in my closet crying and I have no one else to talk to, and we get it. And I think that's where you understand when someone else is going through the same thing, that you get to do that. But thanks for sharing. I mean, I know it's so fresh, and it's also fresh for you, so it's hard.
And can I say one thing before we go down the road?
Of course.
They're like, no.
You're cut off, but we'll let you do it.
So this is how I feel about it. It's not just us that go through. The whole, everyone that knows you goes through it with you,
And they don't know.
It affects your
Yes.
It affects everyone around you,
I'd agree with that.
and you've got to choose.
And
good
everyone,
attitude or bad attitude, but it affects everyone. It's not just about us.
and all their emotions is so different. But
Absolutely.
the treatment, everything is about you. But
It is.
everybody around you has different emotions, and they probably
scared.
They're scared,
They're scared.
and they don't know how to relate.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes up for the what not to say when someone has cancer. We'll get into that a little bit later, but we're going to move on to Ginger.
So relationships, that's an interesting, I use that word a lot. There's a lot of interesting things that I've experienced, and to tell the whole story would be, 4 hours long in a Lifetime drama movie when it's all done, which is going to be, great. I hope you all show up for that one. But but as when you talk about relationships, I think you're right on point there, Mandy, because the whole, everything changes. Financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, everything changes. Everything's impacted by that. And granted, I saw a relationship go downhill for a long time, and there was a lot of factors into that. But while that relationship was going downhill, I chose personally to then turn my relationship to God. And that relationship, whether it's the universe or, however you relate to that, that relationship magnified. And so for me, being able to start to go into a space where I'm trying to identify more with myself, because my life was falling apart. I mean, it was, and it did. And now I'm building, I'm picking up the pieces. But for me, the relationship was identifying with the divine, and then also identifying more with myself. Of, why do I do what I do? Why do I say what I say? What I believe? Like, where is my inner core, and what do I want my future to be, instead of always feeling like I was being controlled by all the other outside elements. So for me, it was a very sacred journey in a way.
It was a turning point.
Very
a
big
turning
turning
point
point.
that said, I matter.
Just to step into that space, sacred ground, just to step onto that space and allow the ownership of that, which was very healing. Honestly, it was very healing for me, and it took 42 years to get here, but and I'm still growing.
We will all continue to grow until we don't. Right. So, Lydia, I love watching your Facebook posts where you're running, and you're with, I don't know, I think it was a couple weeks ago, something with like a walk with your husband around Daybreak Lake and post-cancer. So tell me about your relationship with your husband.
So he's a super tender-hearted man. A lot of people don't realize that about him because I'm the one that gets to see that, and it's part of why I married him. So I feel very blessed that I've had that with me the entire time, and I realize that not everybody has that. And one of the things that happened was a couple weeks after the diagnosis, he's like, "You're really taking this very well." And I said, "Well, I have a couple choices. I could wallow and drag you down with me, or I can, there's nothing I can do about this diagnosis. I just have to do the best I can with what I know and move forward." And he's like, "Oh, okay." He's just like, "All right." Well, I got to the point where I went to the oncologist and learned about the chemo. That was a shock because initially that was not the case. And like you had said, it's like, oh, great, I'm now have to go through chemo. And I was fine. I'm like, okay, they told me all of the rotten side effects. I don't know if that's the new thing, but they told me everything because I've been told other people were not told anything. I was told everything. And I'm like, whoa, this is pretty harsh. Well, then I went to my radiology oncologist, and then they're talking about, it's on your left side and your heart may be radiated and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like going, no, I'm not going to do this. And I came home and I told my husband, I'm not going to do this. I'm not doing this. And he just stopped for a second and he went, "What about me?" And I was like, "But it's my body, and I had clear margins, and my lymph nodes that they took out were clear, and I'm okay. They've gotten it all. I'm good." So the next day, he always needs 24 hours to process. I think many men are like that. Yes. And he just said, "I am willing to do whatever you do. I will back you up." And it was just so tender and loving. Well, then we told my 23-year-old. And he just completely lost it and was like, "What about your future grandchildren?" And I just went, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it all. How funny that I wasn't going to do that for my husband, but for my son, who's just like, "Your future grand." And I'm like, I really still felt they got it all, but it's like, okay, if this is going to make you happy and make you confident, and I was told 95%, and it's just like, and he's like, "I was in there with the oncologist. She said 70% versus 95%, and blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "I'm part of the 70, son. It's okay." And then it was like, okay, all right, I will do it. So, and my husband was there for chemos, and what you were talking about is so true. My husband, he's a very quiet man, and it's like 3 hours, actually 4, sometimes with Herceptin too. It's like, this is taking a long time. And I finally told him, "You know what? Chemo days, when I did my long runs, I felt the best on chemo day." And I just said, "Sweetheart, I love you very much, but I really need you to be here when I'm not feeling well on the weekends." Yeah. And he was upset. He wanted to be there for chemo day. And I feel bad. I should have probably honored him and just said, "Okay, I'll just have someone come over to the house," but I wasn't comfortable with other people coming over to the house. And so anyhow, he did do that. And then I had friends, and we laughed and had a grand old time, and my nurses would make me laugh till I cried. I mean, they were amazing. So there was that, but there's one thing I did want to say, and I know this might be a little bit uncomfortable for people to talk about, but cancer and treatment messes with your intimacy with your spouse. And it really stunk because I am very physical, and that is something that I very much enjoy about my marriage. And I finally asked him about it. He said, "I'm afraid I'm going to hurt you." And that was so hard to accept, and I know I have to respect his feelings about that, but that was really hard. And I had that poured in me for 14 months, and it was painful, and he knew that, and to not have that piece of our marriage for a long time really sucked.
I can understand that, and I'm going to, just so you feel comfortable, I want to share a story because, my fiance, soon-to-be husband, came to me and he said, what if I'm the one that hurt you? What if I'm the one that gave you this cancer? I'll never be able to live with myself. And that's been hard, to be engaged and get married and to hear that and to not always have that intimacy, because it does affect the emotion, and it's definitely something that I think it's a reality. But it's a reality that people have to understand and know about, because it's not necessarily that they don't want to touch you or we don't want to be touched. It's just
You don't love each other. Yeah.
it's just where you're at, and everyone's still processing. So, but thank you so much for sharing that, because it's such an important aspect of the realities of this. So, and Tony, you talk every time
You're
I'm
making me cry. I mean, like, I'm doing really good, then they get to me and I just start crying, and they're like, let's not talk to her anymore.
no.
You guys, when you're talking about, when you said about cancer effects, I'm really into acronyms, and I made an acronym for cancer, and it's change agent, naturally empathy rises, because it affects everybody. And a lot of other things arise, but you will also feel empathy from strangers and everything. My relationship with my husband is good and sometimes not good. And he's, being the real stoic one, going to work, because I work for myself, so I've been able to, not work as much and not have to be at an office or whatever, and still teach and do what I do. And but our sex life right now isn't that great. He goes to bed early and gets up early because that's what his job is, and I can't sleep. And I'm trying to get to bed, and then, they're like, well, radiation's coming up. Well, the only side effect mostly is fatigue. I'm like, great. I'm not sure how much more I can take of that. But he's been really great. He really listens, and he's there. But it's a whole new territory for everybody, and you don't know how. There's no direct path. You just have to flow, and trusting the unknown is a challenge. But you have to, because if not, you can go down this deep, dark hole that you never get out.
Absolutely. It's uncharted waters.
It totally is uncharted waters.
And for everyone, it's a completely different path, and we don't know how it's going to work out, but you just trust in the relationships that you do have and the ones that are strong, and continue to nurture them and support, and somehow it all works out, right? It is what it is.
It's what
Yes.
it is.
When I hear sad news for a friend of any kind, right? Not even cancer, like you're like, what can I do? Yeah. Hey, what can I do for you? And those words all of us say all the time, what can I do? And when you're a cancer patient, it's overwhelming when someone says to you, what can I do? And you're like, I just want to sit in the corner. I don't even know, like, I don't know what I want to eat. I can't process, right? So having faced what you've all faced, if there's someone that says, what can I do? What's the best answer for someone that's about to go through this journey or be in this journey? And all of you have a different answer, because you're all in different places in life. So.
Well, so cute, Tony said, and you have to let people, like, don't take that away from them. But there's sometimes that's like, not right now.
You have the right to say no, but let them in.
Yeah. And you'll probably get into words to not ask cancer patients, so I won't go there.
Yeah.
But I have a great neighborhood, and everyone is just so overwhelming, and they want to bring you tons of food, and I'm like, it's a whole new eating, go green. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell my neighbors, well, you can't bring me this and this, and you've got to get organic and listen. So I just told my husband, I said, I'm capable, we're capable. So I didn't let a lot of meals come, and chemo, I wasn't vomiting all the time because they have pills for that. I did really, really well, but I just really couldn't eat because the metal taste. So there would be, the day before chemo, I'd go eat like 3 pieces of pizza, good pizza. But it's like, I gotta eat this 3, and I'd never do that. But I'm like, I'm not gonna eat for 10 days. So you pick and choose, and people were so kind and wanting to help. And so I tried to allow people to help where they could, and I told my husband, absolutely not any funeral flowers. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't want a bunch of people bringing me funeral flowers. I'm not dying. And my cutest older neighbor, she brings me the big spray funeral the first day. And he brings them in, and I said, see, funeral flowers. And I love her dearly because in her heart, it was her way of giving. But I was like, no more of those in the house. Because I'm not envisioning that. So,
Yes.
So I think I'm a big giver. And I think people sometimes, we are more sensitive. Maybe the givers are the ones that get things because we give so much. So I had to kind of reel it in and think I need to become a taker, and I do need to kind of appreciate what I know I need to do. And people were really respectful for that. So, I mean, I can't appreciate how many people wanted to take me to everything and stuff. And you do, you pick and choose, and you do allow them to be givers. So.
I think that's good. No more funeral flowers.
Yeah, I just laughed. Yeah, my husband looked at him. I said, see, funeral flowers.
Yes.
And he's like, oh.
I'm having a really hard time still with letting people do for me. I don't want to. I have a hard time being a taker as well. I'm a nurse, and I've always been the one to do everything for everybody. And like even all my patients, like every one of them like has texted me or called me and made sure that everything's okay and how are you doing, and I feel fine still. I haven't started chemo, so for me, like I still feel fine, and I've got my friends who cart my butt around everywhere. I finally started driving this last couple of days, but even that is so hard. Like my kids, my one kid is almost as tall as I am. I'm like, honey, can you reach that cup up there for me? And just asking for a cup is hard. It is so hard to let people do things for you. And I don't think I am there yet. I don't know. I guess
It's a very honest answer because of where you are in your journey, and but you will probably be asking for help, and that's okay.
Well, the best advice I ever received was from a friend who is also a survivor, because people would come and say, well, what can we do for you? And you're like, I don't know, what can you do? Like, that's the best way I found to respond to that question.
What can you do?
I don't know, what can you do? Because again, we are so stuck in.
That is a good one.
We don't know what we're supposed to do. So how can I tell you? Why would you bring that and put that on me when I'm still trying to figure out myself and what I'm doing? So throwing it back. But my friend said, you're going to get this question. So she said, before you get into it, she said, make a list of everything that you would want somebody to do for you. And then that way, if you have a copied list, you just hand it out and say, choose one, right? So that way it's kind of an organizational thing, which I was never, that girl. So it never crossed my mind, but that was probably the smartest thing to be able to say when people would come and you're like, well, here's a list. Now, I didn't always take advantage of that, because you don't always have a list on you all the time, but it's something you could easily put up on Facebook and just pin it to your post. You could put it anywhere and just say, these are the things that you can do for me, because people will come out, they will want to help. That's how they cope.
Right.
And again, allowing them, to Tony's point, to serve you, it helps them to get through the diagnosis as well.
And I think the best thing to say is, what can you do? Because everyone has a different strength that they're there to give.
Or what are you willing to do?
What are you willing to do?
Because I'm like,
do.
my toilets need cleaning.
Yes.
Seriously. I can't get myself off of the recliner.
It's the real thing.
Yeah, that on the list.
Yeah, there you go. There are some websites too that you can do similar things like that if you need rides and things like that. I don't know anything about them, but as a friend of mine that is dealing with chemo and radiation right now, she's done that, and I was able to take her for a radiation appointment the other day, and it was great. Just like you're saying, it makes you feel better when you help other people. But I think one thing advice you can give is, please don't say, could just call me if you need anything. Can you just call me? And you're like, I'm not going to. I mean, I think women in general tend to be very nurturing, and we tend to be those giving people, and we're not going to make that phone call. And I think that's just the reality. And a friend of mine that lives in Minnesota, she's a college friend, she did the neatest thing. I get this card in the mail, and it's a gift certificate with a lot of money on it for Utah maids. It was the coolest thing. And it was probably it was after I'd been done with radiation. I was in the middle of going back into my teaching year, struggling, and she knew I was struggling. And it was the coolest thing to call them up and have them go over and clean my house. I was just like, oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah,
and
the little things.
Then the elementary school I was working at, brand new to that school. I'd only been teaching there since September or August, and they rallied around me. It had, unfortunately, when you're a teacher, it's like this public thing. I didn't know how the chemo was going to affect me. I had to disclose to families. I knew I was going to lose my hair. I knew I could wear a wig, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be running out of the door to throw up. I had no idea what was going to happen with me. So I had to do full disclosure. Well, with that came, what can we do for you kind of thing.
Right.
The staff made a collection for a wig fund. The PTA had a Dogs for a Cause for Mrs. Lepetka, and they raised over $1,000 for me. The DARE officers in the neighborhood in Midvale said, we want to get involved, and they did a dunk tank for me and raised over $200 for me. It was unbelievable to have this community that really didn't know me that well, and they just rallied like no other. So leaving this school this year to go to another school has been hard because I feel like a traitor or something. But it's hard. It's hard to accept that stuff. The PTA president's like, please let us do this for you, please. And I was like, it was hard. And then to be so public and this big sign, Dogs for a Cause or Mrs. Lepetka, and then it's just like, oh gosh. But you do have to sometimes, I don't know if it's swallowing your pride or just saying, okay, it's my time to receive and to allow this to happen and to allow people to help you in whatever capacity that they can. So, and I received cards. I just received one about 2 months ago that said, I'm sorry I haven't written to you. I honestly didn't know what to say. And I appreciated that honesty. And I wrote him back and told him just where I'm at, and it was great, know. But anyhow.
I love what you guys, I love that, what can you do? What are you willing to do? And the whole, call me if you need anything reminds me of someone that you're not very close to that says, let's do lunch. It's like you said, I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to,
Right.
The whole let's do lunch thing is just, I love people from afar. I don't keep them. I don't kick them out, but I can love them from afar. But the whole giving and receiving is such universal energy, and it's really hard. But you cannot give all the time because then you have an empty vessel. And even like when you're on the airplane, what do they say? Put your mask on first and then help others. So a little mantra I do every day is, may I live this day with more compassion and love for all those I meet, including myself. Because I meet myself every day, right? And just as far as what people can do, I'd had set up to get my house cleaned, treating myself, and they canceled that day because something had come up. The girl I don't know, I can't even remember why. And I was telling my mom and my daughter, and they surprised me and cleaned the whole house that day.
Wow. Very cool.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. I got gift certificates to movies, but as far as, giving advice to somebody is, I love what Steve had said earlier. Don't tell me you know how I feel, right? Because everybody's so individual. Just be there to listen to somebody. You can even, call them. I don't suggest just showing up to somebody's house because I think we all want to be a little bit warned. I had a couple people do that, right?
Right.
But, let them know and then just, be there for them and just listen. And that's sometimes the best thing you can do is just be. And of course, another acronym I have for be is breathe and expand. Just be there for those people. Breathe for yourself, expand for yourself.
Yeah.
Because when we can expand, then all of our choices widen and we can see. But when we get really narrow, then our world starts to close. And when we try to do everything for ourselves, our world starts to close. So let others in.
That's good advice. Let others in. And have your boundaries.
And have boundaries. Oh yeah, you gotta have boundaries.
So the positive, right? Be positive. Go out there. You can do this. We've got this. We can all, everyone around you decides that they're going to give you every positive thing, and you just stay positive. But it's not positive 24/7, and it's great to say, I'm going to live. I'm choosing me. this is going to happen. I know what's going to happen. I'm not going to think of anything bad. But the reality of it is, that's not true. There's always pain, and there's always a doubt that creeps in, and the what if. And you can't let that consume you, which we all understand. But let's be real. Let's talk about the pain, because there's pain. So you get to start it off.
Oh, he's always being this.
Do you want me to switch it up? Do you want to switch it up this time?
No, I'm okay. Hope I answer it correctly. Okay, so I can say I have suffered and I have starved, right? Because you think chemo, and then it's so funny because people that have had it, they're like, oh my gosh, it's a blur, I don't remember it. And I'm like, oh. And I'm only 3 years out. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm going to forget it. Like, I remember it. My face burnt off. And I mean, I had a lot of, and I call them trick-or-treats. So I would text my sister when mine's coming. And you give things. Like, it's poison. So everybody gets a little trick-or-treat. So every time I would chemo, I'm like, wonder what my trick-or-treat's going to be this time. And it would be different.
Yeah.
And some were pretty horrible. So I was like, this is pretty brutal. And that's why I had to laugh at myself, like, oh, chemo, okay, bring it, let's get going. And then after I'm like, oh, I'm a whipped puppy with my tail under me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. So it is, but as we all have, you have to choose. It's not easy. Some days I just would think, you know what, it's just easier. I'm going to roll over and die. Put my legs up in the air like a dog. I'm just going to roll over and die. Because this is so much work to live and to think. And each chemo, you're like, And that's what people ask. Well, chemo, I was like, oh, radiation, piece of cake. And not to make that small, because that's huge. But the chemo was huge for me. So I don't know. You try to stay positive, and I would try. Where I'm at now, 3 years later, I have learned, and you hate to let people go, but you choose to live, you choose to be positive. I have friends that make me laugh. I'm out in the community a lot, so I too couldn't sit and hide it. I had to I work retail and I sell jewelry, so I'm asking the doctor, can you put my port a little lower? Because I don't think I'm going to sell a necklace with this big, huge port right next to it. Like, can you put it under my tank? So I had to disclose it to pretty much and some are more into my face than I would choose, and I would choose who I want to, but I have eliminated spaces, pieces, people, time that aren't positive for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're good or bad, but for me, they're not spiritually, they're not strengthening me, and I embrace things that want for my betterment.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's sometimes hard, is not to pick people like, you're not good for me, goodbye. But I think you really have to get your little circle around you, because you have to move forward and let the negative and the bad go. And people do want to say nice things sometimes, and it comes out very not nice. And it's not that they're not trying to be nice. They don't get it.
They don't.
But that's okay, and they're not trying to be mean.
Right.
But people that aren't in my corner cheering me on, I've walked from those.
You protect your inner circle.
Yeah, I'm protecting myself a lot more. Because
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of scared now.
No,
I just
you're gonna text me each week.
Yet, and
Don't be scared.
I think
Don't be scared.
Everybody's different. I didn't get sick. I did not
everyone's
get sick
different.
in chemo. I got tired.
like this is probably the first time that I've actually come to realize that I have cancer. Like just sitting here with everybody and hearing everybody say how horrible it is, and it hasn't been horrible yet, and I kind of feel bad that it hasn't been horrible.
It may not be.
I had that same thing.
It may not be at
And
all.
don't.
It'll get horrible. It's okay. It's gonna be fine. You'll fit right in. It'll be fine.
It may not get horrible.
No, you'll be okay.
I'd absolutely.
Skiing during chemo.
I was supposed to do the Spartan race on August 5th, and I was so mad that I couldn't do it.
She ran.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the doctors planned my surgery close enough to the Spartan race that I wouldn't do it.
I skied during
Otherwise,
mine.
I may
I
have,
skied during
but-
mine. It was after chemo, but I was like, please no one hit me or I will break.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh.
But I went up with my daughter for our birthday. You'll be okay. It just won't be.
It won't.
Don't be. It may not be hard, but it probably won't be easy.
I know
It'll
it's
be
not
okay.
going to be fun, and I know it's going to be hard, and I know it's, but I mean, in the end, I know in the end it will be okay. It has, like, there's no other choice. It
It's
has
gonna
to be
No,
okay.
Right.
totally.
It's
not gonna
only
get
temporary.
You. It's not going to beat you.
And it's
It
different
is.
for everybody.
It is.
Temporary.
You have every
Yeah.
one of us to call.
Absolutely.
And we'll do lunch.
And
Yeah, we'll call you for lunch.
And could you call me when you need anything?
Yes.
Let me know
no.
what you need. I'll be there.
Okay. Thank you. I'll make a list for you.
Truly though, don't be scared. I mean, this is
You guys, I hadn't
it is
even
from
thought
TV.
about, like, you guys are talking about how, like, your margins were clear and your lymph nodes were negative, and I don't know why I'm a nurse and I should have thought about those things, but my lymph nodes are involved, and
Mine were.
Mine were.
okay.
But we're still here.
Yes.
Look at it. We're sassy.
I know.
We got some spit in us. You're going to be okay. It is scary. It's so scary.
And it's okay to be
Yeah.
and to feel that.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
totally okay because we all
Absolutely.
of us have.
We've all been afraid.
Yeah.
We've all been afraid, very afraid. I'm afraid to research stuff because I don't want any of the negative stuff in my mind.
No.
And so I haven't really looked up a lot of stuff. Everything that the doctors are telling me makes sense, and so I'm okay.
And I think
with
that's
that.
okay.
That's great.
And you have
As
a
soon as
cute
they say
doctor.
something, I know. He's
So
really
you
cute.
know,
I know.
trust him.
I know. Yes, he's cute.
I made her send me a picture. Wait, I just have to see this doctor.
He's really cute. I'll show you.
Okay. We all have the same
He's so nice too, and I get to see him today. So.
So trust.
Smiling.
Yeah, I think you're smart to trust your doctors and to not let that, you know.
As soon as they say something
Yeah.
crazy, I'll definitely
Yeah.
like that doesn't sound right. But
Right. So Ginger,
So,
doubt, pain, fear.
oh, all of it, all of the above. I mean, that's the thing is you cannot experience cancer without a degree of pain. You can't, and you will not experience it without a massive degree of fear. But I've learned it's not about being positive. You know, I would go in and I'd do my little happy chemo routine and I'd sing my little song and I'd hand out my little gifts, and then I'd sit in that chair and be like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk to me because I'm not, I just did my little thing, you know, and that's
now-
great. And now I'm not happy. Like, this is not happy, even though I was saying happy chemo. It wasn't happy, right? And so I'd sit in that chair and I'm like, don't talk to me, because what I learned was, though, it's not about being positive. Like, I always say, if the positive police come into your space, send them out for donuts, right? Because you will not always be positive. But for me, it's about gaining perspective. It's how can I gain perspective with each decision I have to make, with each emotion that I have to feel.
Right.
Like, how can I learn from this? How can I grow? Because if I feel personally, if you're not going through adversity, or if you're not learning, if you're not learning while you're going through adversity, then you might as well stop going through adversity because you're not gaining anything from it. So how can we learn? How can we get a different perspective? How can I see myself in a different way? So a lot of self-discovery, but being afraid is part of the deal.
It is part of
That's
the deal.
just part of the deal because it's the unknown. And so, but being positive, there is value. There's honestly value in, they've done studies that prove that. If you can stay in that space for longer amounts of time,
Right.
then you will have a faster, a happier experience. It's still hell, right? It's still hell. But at the same time, you're not in the down, you know, as we were talking about the energy shifts and the different things that go on with that. Like there is energy shifts, and you have to honor all of those different spaces because you'll face all of them. You will.
Absolutely.
You'll face all of them. So if you honor yourself and be gentle, oh my goodness, be gentle and kind to yourself. I beat myself up for so long, and we're really good at beating ourselves up.
We are.
Right?
We are.
God.
So that's
Okay.
one thing I think that is the perspective of it, and to not beat yourself up. Just
Be gentle.
what do I need to learn today from this?
Yep.
You know, because you're not going to be smiling 24/7.
Nope.
Can't be sunshine
You know?
all the time.
No,
Nope.
you can't be. And that's why we have rain, because the rain allows us to refresh, regrow.
Right.
And
You know?
appreciate the rainbow.
Yeah.
So, Lydia.
Well, I am the queen of fake it till you make it. I, as a teacher, and especially I've taught kindergarten more than anything, just going in there and putting on that smile. Doesn't matter what's going on at home, doesn't matter what's going on with you physically, you're there and smiling. And so bad to the point where someone at school was like, after the chemo, the next year when I was still getting Herceptin, was like, you did pretty good on that chemo stuff, didn't you? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. I mean,
Sure. Yeah, it was a
like,
breeze.
I'm not even going to go there, but I'm really good at that. And I'm also, picking and choosing who I can be real with. And so I went through all kinds of bizarre things. I mean, them seeing something on my liver and having to get a CAT scan, and then I was getting migraines and everything. I swear it was always like, that's really unusual with this kind of chemo. We're going to need to investigate. And it's like, really? Now I'm doing an MRI for my brain? Really? Because I went into migraine, and that wasn't typical. And some of these things. And then I was getting bloody noses, and that wasn't normal either. And I'm just going to give you some advice. If you have bloody noses, don't go to the ER. Just don't, okay? Because they slam something up your nose, and then you have a little thing coming out of your nose. Don't go. Just say, I am going to fight this sucker and get rid of it myself. Because, hours and hours of bleeding. And I'm just like, I'll never do that. And I tell everybody. And then the next time I had one at school, they're like, they're icing my neck and doing all this stuff. I'm like, I don't care what happens. I'm not going to the emergency room. Well, we're calling your husband. I'm not going to the emergency room. I don't care. I'm like, it was really kind of humorous, to be honest with you. But I'm that weird person that I cope with humor, and everything is hilarious to me. I'm going around with this thing in my nose with the little bladder thing, and it's just hysterical to me. I don't know. I would go to my chemo, and my nurses and I would laugh to death, and yet I still had those moments of deep fear and concern, but I don't know. I just kind of made a joke out of everything.
So everyone around you wants to stay positive daily. For yourself, you want to stay positive, but there's always those moments of doubt and pain. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there is doubt, but like when I was waiting the 10 days for my pathology report, you're wondering what it's going to be, and it's just a moment of time lapse. It's just there. But what I've found for me to bring myself back to center, because I always have to bring myself back to me, is, we've been talking about fears and everything, is staying present. That's the biggest gift, is if you can stay present and not worry about the future. Because when you do that, it's unknown. We don't know what's going to happen. So if we can keep coming back to the present, and wherever I'm at, whether I'm crying or I'm having a good day, I'm okay with where I am, and you have to let yourself be okay. And it's hard. It's hard to, I teach people, my teacher reminded me, wow, you really get a chance to live what you teach. I teach slow down, be present, breathe. Right. And there's a part of me thinking that's why I was diagnosed, so I could become a better teacher. It's made me a better teacher. But there are doubts, and you wonder, and it's okay. You can go there for a second or a minute or 10 minutes or a day, but you always know you can come back to the center, whatever that is. And being vulnerable, as Brené Brown says, is very courageous. It's when we're like, I'm fine. And you know that you're not fine, but you tell somebody that. My biggest, when you said how your friend was saying about what can you do for me? Well, my biggest one was a friend of mine who went through not cancer, but something physical. And when people ask how you are, and honest, because I'm not a liar. I can't lie, and nor do I want to share it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Right.
It's called organ recital. I don't want to share all that, right?
Right.
And so my biggest thing that helped me is when someone asks, how are you doing? I am unbelievable. I could be unbelievably stressed. I could be unbelievably happy. But right now in this moment,
It's unbelievable.
I am and people just go, oh, that's great. And then they go on their way.
Right.
And if you're feeling really good, then tell them that you're, whatever you feel. But if you just want to give a response where you're done, I'm unbelievable right now.
That's such great advice, really, because you don't have to
open
conversation.
No, that's
And
how you can cut it off. And people are totally accept it. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
She's unbelievable.
She's unbelievable.
Like you have no clue.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I think it's a good reminder to stay present to be, you know, in that moment. And, you know, I know with yoga,
Because
it's the same
people
thing.
were asking me, like, when
Yeah.
are you going to do this? When it's just like when I first got from the surgeon, when he told me I had clean nodes and clean margins, it wasn't 30 seconds. And he said to me, all right, now we got to schedule you with the radiologist. And I just said, whoa, can I just have a few minutes here to embrace this positive stuff that you just gave me? Give me, and the poor nurses just kicked the surgeon out. And I have the really great surgeon, but he has no bedside manners. It's just like, give me a moment. Just let me take this in.
Yeah.
And as soon as I had done my surgery, it was like, when are you doing chemotherapy? It's like, let me just be here for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through that as it comes along. And people are asking me, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm right here.
And that's such good advice for everybody out there.
Just
be right there.
Be wherever you are.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really good. So I'm going to switch. We're going to do a little bit of individual questions because each of you do have your own very unique story and moment. So I'm going to start with Sally. She's like, really? Why? But you know, yours is truly unique. After speaking on the phone and you know, things you're going to be able to, you know, say that because it's something I can't even express. For you, radiation was easy and chemo altered your life in so many ways. And you call them your trick-or-treats. And I love that because you've named it. You know, tell us about what has happened.
I hate saying things because then it scares
It's
the
okay.
little
No,
ones. But maybe I am so unique. But it was so funny because you read through all that stuff and you're like, well, that one happened, that one. Well, I swear everything happened to me. And every time my nurse would call, I'm like, seriously, one more thing? And so every chemo I would get something different, and you know, my face burnt off. I know it sounds really weird, but it was like brick red, and I literally pilled. It was like a bad chemical pill. And I'm calling them up. They're like, that's really rare. We haven't heard of it. And I'm like, well, like my whole body's burnt, but my face is literally, and it was like, I wore V's and stuff to show my jewelry, but it lined the V. And I looked like I'd fallen asleep under a sun lamp for a couple hours. So my customers would come in and like, ooh, probably shouldn't suntan so much. I'm like, yeah. So, okay. And then I did get a patch on my arm, and I didn't that was my second chemo, but I had to take a whole bunch of Benadryls and stuff. We were trying to figure out why, which chemical what. So that was one. And unlike, and unfortunately, what a word, you know that what's common, so unfortunately. My hair did not grow back great. My nails fell off. I mean, it was pretty wicked to me. And so during Christmas, I'm having customers come in to buy for Christmas, and I have Band-Aids on my fingernails, and they were bleeding, and they smelled poison. Like, I smelled like poison because I was poison. But I didn't figure out till like 2-3 months later, like, I'm calling my doctor, and my sister's a week ahead. So she's like, I got all these girls and my hair's growing back. And I'm like, seriously? So when I go to my oncologist, and I'm like, Houston, we have a problem. She's like, well, let's give it 3 more months. And I'm like, so I have hair that grows back. It's not pretty. It's not, for me, it's not wearable. And then everybody's thing to tell me is like, well, you ought to just shave bald. It'll be awesome. I'm like, I am not seeing a lot of people walking around bald feeling that confident. So I'm, you know, and I'm out in sales. So I'm not, I don't know. The whole thing was just such a weird experience. You feel like I'm run marathons and I've eaten well. And I think that was my biggest anger. It was like, you feel like if you're, and that sounds stupid, but if you're a good person and you do the right things, you're not going to, good things happen to bad things happen to good people. And I guess it was so unexpected, and so it's rare, but now I guess it's not, because they are having some lawsuits over it, and not me personally. But I would see women come into my shop, and I would see the crown of their head, not so, I said, I wonder, that was before I had cancer, and now I'm like, I know exactly what you've had. And so I would never tell them, oh, I don't think I could wear that. So I call my hair furs, and my peeps that work with me, they're like, oh, is it the winter fur you're going to put on or summer fur? And so that was a huge disappointment because you cry in the shower. You're like, great. And my thought was always like, well, it's okay because it's going to come back. It'll grow back. Well, not for me. But I always have to think there are so much worse things in life. And Lisa's my cute doctor, and she'd been through cancer, and my nurse had been through cancer. They're like, they're not okay with it either. I think it pains them. But they're so cute because I would be like, okay, I am so grateful to be alive. Super, super grateful and I expected to be. It better be after all that. But I'm like, this is a huge, bad consolation prize. And they know it. So they've been so supportive. And I just have to remind myself that, you know what, not just with cancer, people have some really wicked things. And there's these people that are so good cheerleaders. So I told Mandy, I said, I am not a good cheerleader. Like, yeah, go Team Cancer. Let me do it again. Yay. Because it's hard for me. I'm just super grateful. And I try to help people that come in my shop, and I know. And I know they wear wigs. And I know they're going through cancer. Their hair is shaved off. I mean, I have a great opportunity to give them hugs. And then they're like, we're going up to Huntsman for cancer. I'm like, high five. I did it 3 years ago. You've got a great team. So, I mean, that's my outreach to the community. I'm not one to want to get on a camera and go, oh, I had this great story and I'm so awesome and I lived it and I survived it. I'm like, yeah, the whole thing sucked. but I'm here.
You get to give one-on-one.
Yes.
And that's a very powerful thing because it's when you least expect it, when you need it. And something like that, I can say, getting the hug when you least expect it is absolutely one of the greatest things.
And they do. They'll start crying. And this gal had my winter fur on, but it was a different color, and she was so cute. And her husband, and I knew. And I went up and I'm like, your hair is amazing. And she's like, thank you. It's a wig. And I said, I know, so it's mine. It's a different color. Yeah. And you know what? I think it just empowered her to be okay with not okay, but
to embrace it.
Try to embrace it and spread it out somewhere where you can, send a little more love.
Yes.
But I told Mandy, I said, I don't think I'm going to be brave enough to take my fur off.
And you don't have to be. Like, that's a personal
that's my
choice.
Home fur, but
yes.
That's not my work fur.
Tony.
Yes.
How has teaching at Huntsman Cancer Institute, Tai Chi, how has that helped you heal?
Oh, it's what gets me through every day. I've been practicing for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I've only been teaching at Huntsman for 3. It teaches me to be present. I've learned that everything is temporary. And my teacher always reminds me, and I always share with my students, if life is really great right now, give thanks, because it's going to change. And if your life is shit right now and you're going through stuff, give thanks, because it's going to change.
Yeah.
And that's what life is. It's just constant change. The group at Huntsman who I practice with, staff and patients and caregivers, it's just an empathy group that people we can relate to one another, and they've given me little insights about what's happened to them, not giving me advice, but just sharing what's happened to them. And if it were to happen to me, that this is what you can do. And it's been really, really great. And they've given me more these past, 3 months than I feel that I've given to them, but they say no. And then, of course, I've been on the media and had the TV and the print about me, and it's like you were saying, I didn't want to be a star this way. And everybody's like, oh, you're so famous. It's like, this is not the way I'd planned on being famous. Yeah. Because when they approached me to do the media, I thought it was spam. I had an email that said potential media story. And then I started reading it, and I'm like, oh my God, they want to do a story on me. And I wanted the story to be about Qigong and how, and Tai Chi, and how that helps, this modality of integrative medicine helps you get through this Western crap. They're like, well, yeah, that can be a part of it, but we really want a story on you. And I'm just like, oh. But my thought was the same reason I did this group, is if I can help somebody know that a diagnosis is just a diagnosis, it's not a terminal disease,
Right.
that
Absolutely.
you can get through it and breathe through it. So yeah, the group up there is just fantastic. Everybody is really great.
Awesome. Thank you. Amy, I came to the hospital, as we talked about earlier, but you were in such high spirits. I mean, you were just laughing and making jokes, and your dad was making jokes, and everyone was just so, like, high-spirited. And you know now, like, at that point, you didn't know that your nodes, that it had spread into your nodes, right? You didn't know any of that. So how are you feeling today, and what do you want people to know?
I still feel good. Like when people ask me, how are you feeling? I feel good.
Yeah.
I'm fine. And I think it's just because I haven't really started any treatment yet. Like it sucks. I don't have any boobs left, and that kind of sucks. And you still have the sensation that you have boobs. And so that's really weird. But I've always tried really hard, like with my girls. And I think that this is just what's helping, is to try and make the best of any situation. I mean, my 11-year-old has an eating disorder, and that has probably been harder than having cancer. Mm-hmm. And it's been stressful to try and make sure she gets what she needs. And I don't feel like feeding you today, but I have to, because I have to.
It's perspective, I guess, right?
Yeah. You just can't let things go. And I do feel like everything happens for a reason, and for some reason, like, we've all got something to learn from this. I feel like my girls have something to learn, and I do, and my parents, and probably my ex-husband. Like, everybody, I feel like, can learn and grow from the situation. Like I said, it's not fun, and it's gonna suck, and I know there's gonna be crappy days, and I'm not gonna feel good, and it's not gonna be pretty, but in the end, I feel like in the end it will be okay. There's no other choice. It has to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lydia. No reason to be scared. I mean, you're a runner, you're a go-getter. You've said, like, I'm just going to do it. But I feel like, although you've been all that this has all given you such a brand new lease on life. I mean, you've released your depression. You've overcome some things that maybe you would not have faced. So tell me how it feels with this new lease.
So we used the word surreal before, and I feel like I really just went through that in this last year and a half. It's just bizarre. I feel like I'm back to my old self, but it is a new normal. There's no question about it. Yeah. You face things in a totally different way. I mean, stupid things. I mean, this is going to sound so trite, but last fall, some friends of ours asked if we'd like to go to Lake Powell on their houseboat. The normal me? It's the beginning of the year. I'm not doing that. I'm a teacher. I'm like, yeah, sign me up.
Yes.
My mom, when she came out for my chemo, I had made a decision a couple of years ago. She's 79, and I had said, I'm going to spend every Mother's Day with my mom for the rest of my life, for the rest of her life. And who knew that I'd have a death threat in my life?
Right.
But anyhow, so the very first year after I'd made that decision, I went to see her that one Mother's Day. Next Mother's Day, we're going to Yellowstone together. Well, those plans didn't happen. My mom came for chemo instead, and I didn't get to be with her for Mother's Day. So Mother's Day's coming around for this year, and I took the whole week off. I took the entire week off and went to Yellowstone. I was only taking 2 days off. I'm taking the whole week off, went to Yellowstone with my mom, just she and I. And this summer, I traveled 3 different times, wore my nice sleeve that we get to wear for lymphedema on the airplane, but I traveled to see 2 friends, and then my mom, spent some time with my mom and my brother and his family. So I feel like I'm just like different. The whole fact that I've stepped down and I'm going to do some self-care, I'm going to take care of me, and I'm only going to teach part-time this coming school year. It's like totally different for me. And when I talked to my oncologist about going off the antidepressants, I said to her, we're 4 days till the last day of school. I have a non-medical summer because I had gone through this huge medical summer and then had to go back to work and I need the rejuvenation of summer. I mean, I give it everything I have when I'm
Yes.
teaching, and I'm exhausted. And I didn't get that last year. I have a whole non-medical summer ahead of me, and I'm going part-time next year. I said, I think we're ready to wean me. I guess it's called tapering, but I thought it was weaning. So who knew? I don't know. But anyhow, I do feel like I approach things differently. I'm very present. I'm very much, and I've always been that person, but you know, I'm going through the grocery line. I make friends with the person behind me and the person in front of me and the checker, and you know what I mean? I'm just that person that it's like, everyone has value and everyone has a story, and just mine happens to be a breast cancer story, but everyone has their own story, whatever trial it is. And you were saying there could be worse. Yes, I have 4 friends with multiple sclerosis. This finished. I'm on tamoxifen for 4 more years, but how lucky am I? You know, and I just
pity party.
Right, and I don't know. I've always been that glass half full, but I think I'm like the glass full girl now. I don't know.
No,
I'm
I
just,
love
you
it.
know, everything's
Yeah.
just, and that sounds, I don't know. I don't mean to I don't want to diminish anyone's feelings, because I've been at the bottom and I've done all of that. But I feel like every minute I'm alive, I'm so lucky. And I told my husband, I could get hit by a truck tomorrow. I mean, you know, every minute is
Every
precious.
minute counts.
Every person you meet is important. And I've always been that way with my students as well. But that's just how I feel. And I feel like I want to, I don't know, by example, be just a happy, positive person to others in this life now.
Yeah,
So,
make the most is right.
Every day.
Yep.
so.
Thank you. All right,
You're
Ginger.
on.
You know, you've just recently been cleared, which
Yeah.
congratulations. I mean, that's
Thanks.
such big news, and
big.
it gives you a new lease too. But in our conversations, you've been excited about helping others heal by getting toxic situations out of their life. So, what is the one thing you let go that you to move forward, and how do you relate that to others?
You know, there's a lot. Everybody comes out of the woodwork, right? When you get this news and they say, well, what's that? And they want that secret thing that everybody wants, to have that 100% guarantee that we never have to deal with this again. And honestly, it is so complex because we are so unique and we have so many different things. Probably the biggest thing though that I did was I did a massive negativity cleanse. And there is a direct chart line on my chart from where my divorce happened. And that toxicity left. Like, that was the main metastasis, right? And I am a huge advocate for marriage. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I love marriage. But I also understand that if you're in a bad relationship and you're under a lot of stress, stress causes dis-ease, and that can change your cell structure, that can change your DNA structure. I mean, there's science is proving it now. And so for me, it was the biggest thing was, how can I do this negativity cleanse? How can I identify with myself and say, okay, what am I bringing into my space? Is it positive? Is it negative? Or not necessarily a judgment per se, but a discernment, you know, because everybody's going to be different according to what they feel is the correct path for them. And so I honor that, because I don't know your backstory. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know the history. But I know for me that getting out of the negativity and then really stepping into on sacred ground, sacred space, like Brene Brown talked about in her books on vulnerability, it's huge to be able to really just start to owning your value, owning your divine worth, owning the ability to receive, owning all of the abundance that's in the world. So there's a lot, and it's hard for me to say, well, let me take this out of me and, you know, pop it into you.
Right, because I think each person has a different thing.
Yeah, but negativity would probably be my number one start, is to really fine tune and to identify, and what am I speaking, what am I thinking, am I speaking negative over my life, am I speaking, you know, positive over my life? But if we can, you know, I think overall that's what I've gained today from this experience, is that not only do we honor each other's journeys, but we also honor ourselves in making those decisions that, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm accountable for me. I'm accountable for me and what I have to, do, what I don't have to do.
Right.
And so that is my bigger vision now, is to reach 1 million souls.
Yeah.
And to be able to provide information and share these things, because I felt the healing power, if you will, or the influence.
Right.
And to me, that's what I want to give.
Yeah.
I want to give that now.
It's incredible how it changes us and it doesn't all in the same way. It just maybe intensifies those feelings inside that we were meant for something a little bit bigger than we actually wanted to accept at some point. So it's definitely life-changing. But I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this and for being a part of the Cancer Horizons community. We're so blessed, really, in so many ways, to have each other, to have communities that want to stand up and do something. And what Cancer Horizons has created with helping patients and providing resources is just an incredible thing, and we couldn't have done this without you. So thank you, truly thank you, everyone, for being here today.